You know, we spend billions of dollars every single year defending ourselves against bombs.
Oh, absolutely. That and curing devastating diseases or, fighting generational poverty.
Right. We are just so deeply conditioned to constantly scan the horizon for external threats.
Always looking outward for the danger.
Exactly. But the source text we are looking at today, it completely flips that. It's a collection of lost teachings from Osho titled The Gold Within the Silent Sky.
And it is a fascinating text.
It really is. It forces this total rewiring of how you view danger with just one really striking claim.
Yeah.
The text argues that the most dangerous thing in the world is not a weapon, it's not a war. It is a sleeping human being who is utterly convinced they are awake.
Which is just, that framing completely upends the conventional survival narrative we all live by.
It really does. It's almost offensive at first glance.
Right. Because we operate under this very basic assumption that, well, because our eyes are open and we're processing daily information, we must be awake.
Like, I'm answering emails, I'm navigating rush hour traffic, I'm paying my bills.
Exactly. We think, I'm functioning, therefore I am fully conscious. But the text challenges this by presenting our so-called normal state of functioning as a deep hypnotic sleep.
A sleep we don't even realize we're in.
Right. It's this internal psychological blindness. And it is incredibly perilous because the illusion of being awake prevents you from ever actually seeking true consciousness.
Because why would you look for something you think you already have?
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to break through that illusion, the mission of our deep dive today is to explore the lost teachings of Osho.
And it's quite the journey.
It is. The goal here is to strip away the noise of everyday life and uncover this raw, naked, luminous awareness that the text describes. And I think we need to set a baseline for you listening right off the bat.
Yeah, that's important.
This is not your standard run-of-the-mill introduction to basic mindfulness.
Far from it. What's fascinating here is that this isn't about adopting a new religion or, some trendy new belief system or philosophy.
No corporate wellness seminars here?
Right, exactly. This text requires us to move way past those introductory concepts of just managing our stress or finding a better work-life balance.
It's much deeper than that.
It is. It challenges the very core of how we perceive ourselves and our reality. Osho's philosophy here is radical. It's almost nihilistic in how it dismantles the self.
But with a positive endgame, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
It's ultimately meant to be profoundly liberating. The promise here is a complete intellectual and philosophical unschooling of our deepest, most guarded assumptions.
Which brings us to the story. The text anchors this whole dismantling process with this incredibly vivid parable.
The beggar in the box.
Yes, the beggar in the box. So the story goes that there is a beggar who has been sitting outside a temple gate. And not just for a fleeting moment, he has been sitting in the exact same spot for 30 solid years.
30 years. Just let that sink in.
Right. Every single day, he just holds out his hand, asking passersby for coins. His entire existence, his full psychological profile, is completely defined by this absolute lack.
He truly believes he is entirely destitute.
And society just reinforces that belief for him.
They do. People occasionally toss him a copper coin, but mostly they just ignore him. He essentially becomes part of the background architecture of the temple.
Like a piece of furniture.
Yeah, exactly. And the tragic element here isn't just his physical poverty. It's that his identity has completely fused with the act of begging.
His brain is just locked into this permanent scarcity mindset.
Always scanning the environment for the next tiny bit of external validation just to keep him alive for one more day.
But then the disruption happens. A monk walks by the temple.
A classic Zen trope.
Totally. So the beggar extends his hand automatically, right? He's expecting the usual transaction. But the monk gives him nothing.
Not a single coin.
Instead, the monk looks down and asks him a question. He says, "What is that you are sitting on?"
And the beggar's just annoyed by this.
Yeah. He's like, "Look, it's just an old, worthless wooden box." He tells the monk he's been sitting on it for 30 years, and it's basically just a prop in his miserable life.
But the monk forces the issue. He tells him, pry the lid open.
So, reluctantly, the beggar breaks these rusted hinges. He lifts the heavy lid, and he discovers that the box he's literally been sitting on for 3 decades is filled to the brim with gold.
Just an unimaginable treasure.
Exactly. It contains enough wealth to sustain him for 100 lifetimes. He had been sitting directly on top of it, spending his entire life begging for pennies.
It is a devastating realization when you really think about it.
It is. And, bringing this into our modern reality, it feels like we're doing the exact same thing every single day.
Oh, completely.
I was thinking about it like this. It's like we are desperately running around a crowded city, frantically asking strangers for a charger because our phone is at 1%.
Full battery panic mode.
Total panic mode. We are sweating, completely ignoring the fact that we are walking around wearing a high-powered, fully charged battery backpack.
Right. We possess the ultimate power source.
But our attention is so entirely fixed outward, begging for a charge, that we are completely blind to what we're already carrying.
That is a perfect analogy. The text really leverages this metaphor to explain the human condition. We are all the beggar. We all sit outside the proverbial temple, begging for different kinds of coins.
What kind of coins are we talking about here?
Well, we beg for love from relationships to feel whole. We beg for peace from external circumstances. We beg for professional titles to feel significant.
We want that validation.
Exactly. We assume that if we just accumulate enough of these external coins, the internal emptiness is going to magically vanish.
But it never does it?
No, because the psychological mechanism of begging guarantees that the emptiness remains. You cannot cure an internal void with an external coin.
Which really prompts a direct question for you as you listen to this deep dive today. What specific coins are you currently begging for?
That is the big question.
Is it a promotion at work that you think will finally make you respect yourself? Is it the attention of an emotionally unavailable partner? Or is it literally just the dopamine hit of social media metrics?
Identifying those coins is a necessary first step, but the text demands we look deeper at the box itself.
Right, the treasure.
Yes. If we accept the premise that we are sitting on a treasure, we have to define what that gold actually is.
And what does the text call it?
The source material refers to this treasure broadly as awareness. And throughout human history, as the text notes, different traditions have attached various labels to this exact same state.
Like what?
Well, Osho and others have called it consciousness, the witness, the Buddha nature, the Tao.
I have to say, when I hear a list of terms like that, it feels a bit, I don't know, abstract.
Sure, it can feel very lofty.
Yeah, it runs the risk of sounding like some mystical cloud you float on rather than a functional part of our actual daily reality.
The text actually anticipates that exact confusion. It issues a stark warning using a classic Zen proverb, which is, "The finger pointing at the moon is not the moon."
Meaning the names themselves don't matter.
Exactly. The names are just the fingers. The actual mechanism of the witness or awareness, when you strip it of all its mystical baggage, is very simple.
How so?
It is simply the neurological and philosophical capacity to observe your own existence without judgment.
Yeah.
It is that part of your consciousness that can notice you are having a thought, which inherently proves that you are not the thought itself.
Wow. Okay, but that separation is where things get really complicated because the layers of illusion we build over that awareness are incredibly dense.
Oh, they're ironclad.
The text goes into brutal detail about the specific identities we collect and mistake for our actual selves. We claim we are our gender, our nationality.
Our political affiliations, our religious beliefs.
Right. We say, I am a success or I am a failure. We construct these incredibly rigid avatars for ourselves.
The dutiful son, the rebellious daughter.
The corporate leader, the intellectual, we collect all these labels.
And we treat these avatars as our actual skin. And, from an evolutionary psychology perspective, there is a very concrete reason we do this.
Survival. Right.
Yes. The human brain associates identity with tribal survival. For early humans, belonging to a group and holding a specific role meant you were protected.
You had a place by the fire.
Exactly. To lose your role was to be exiled, and exile meant certain death in the wilderness. So when the text asks us to strip away these identities, the brain doesn't just see it as a neat philosophical exercise.
It panics.
It registers it as a lethal threat to our survival.
Okay, but wait, I have to push back here.
Go for it.
In theory, letting go of those labels sounds very peaceful and enlightening, but honestly, applying this to a random Tuesday afternoon is a completely different story.
It is incredibly difficult.
Right. I mean, these roles and identities feel incredibly real. They dictate our daily lives, our responsibilities. If I'm going through a vicious breakup or if I just got unexpectedly fired from a job I tied my entire self-worth to.
Yeah, they're real-world crises.
Exactly. Telling me to simply drop the illusion feels, frankly, incredibly dismissive. If I strip away my name, my career, and my familial roles, the text says what remains is nothing. Isn't that terrifying rather than comforting?
I am so glad you brought that up because your resistance highlights the exact psychological threshold the text is targeting.
So the fear is normal.
It's expected.
Hmm.
The text explicitly validates that fear. It actually calls the question of, who are you really?
Yeah.
The most terrifying inquiry a human being can undertake.
The most terrifying question.
Yes, it is terrifying precisely because the ego, the survival mechanism that built all those identities, feels like it is literally dying. When you lose your job or your relationship, the deep suffering doesn't actually come from the logistical event itself. The suffering comes from the death of the avatar you constructed. The ego screams that you are being destroyed.
So the panic is just the ego mourning the loss of a costume it forgot it was wearing.
That is exactly it. And the expert guidance here, the functional mechanism to survive this ego death, is explained through this beautiful metaphor of the sky and the weather.
The sky and the weather? Tell me more about that.
So think of your thoughts, your deeply held ambitions, your devastating grief over a breakup, or your panic over a lost job. Think of all of these as weather patterns.
Okay.
Sometimes the weather's a mild, beautiful spring day. You feel great. Sometimes it is a violent, destructive Category 5 hurricane.
And we usually think we are the hurricane.
Exactly. We spend our lives identifying as the weather. We say, I am destroyed or I am a failure. But the functional mechanism of the witness is the realization that you are not the weather. You are the sky. The sky holds the hurricane. The sky contains the lightning. But the sky is never fundamentally damaged by the storm, nor is it improved by the sunshine.
That is, I mean, the spaciousness of that idea completely reorients a crisis.
It changes everything.
If you are the sky, you don't have to fight the storm. You don't have to pretend the hurricane isn't happening or try to aggressively positive think it away.
No, you just let it happen.
You just realize the storm is moving through you rather than defining you.
That boundless capacity to hold the chaos without becoming the chaos that is the gold in the box.
That's the awareness.
Yes, the awareness doesn't magically fix your mortgage problem, but it removes the existential suffering attached to the problem. You deal with the practical reality of finding a new job without the crushing psychological burden of believing your fundamental worth has just been annihilated.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
If realizing we possess this untouchable, sky-like awareness is the key to ending our internal suffering, why does the text frame this entire human condition as a joke?
The cosmic joke.
Right. Osho specifically refers to humanity's spiritual search as the cosmic joke. What is remotely funny about the fact that we put ourselves through so much misery?
Well, the humor lies in the profound absurdity of the paradox. The cosmic joke is that humanity spends its entire exhausting existence desperately searching for something it already is.
We're running a race we've already won.
Exactly. We treat enlightenment or inner peace like an acquisition. We approach it with the exact same capitalist, scarcity-driven mindset that we use to buy a house or climb the corporate ladder.
Oh, man. We just swap out our material desires for spiritual ones.
That's all we do.
Instead of trying to acquire a luxury car, we try to acquire, like, enlightenment points. We go on these expensive silent retreats, we read stacks of philosophy books, we argue online over which meditation technique is superior.
It is the ultimate trap of the ego. The brain's biological drive for more simply hijacks the spiritual journey. We believe that if we just find the right book or the right guru or the right diet, we will finally achieve peace in some distant, idealized future.
But the very act of seeking is the problem.
Right. Because seeking implies a distance between you and the goal. The text illustrates this absurdity with this great imagery. It talks about a fish swimming around the ocean in a total panic, desperately asking the other fish, "Where is the water? I have to find the water or I'll die."
Or the text also mentions the sun packing its bags and going on an epic, grueling quest to discover light.
It is completely ridiculous.
It really is.
And when a person finally stops seeking, and they see the sheer absurdity of their own frantic marathon to reach the starting line, the reaction isn't a polite, nervous chuckle.
No, the text says it's a deep, rolling belly laugh.
It is the laughter of total, utter relief. The joke is on the ego. All that effort, all that striving, all the agonizing over becoming better was completely unnecessary because the gold was always in the box.
That realization brings us to one of the most fascinating and honestly contradictory elements of the entire text.
The warning about following.
Yes, because Osho was a highly controversial, incredibly famous figure. He drew thousands of people from across the globe to hear him speak. They literally traveled across continents just to sit at his feet.
He was a massive authority figure.
Right. Yet The text highlights this explicit, really aggressive warning to his own students. He told them, "Do not follow me. Following is the disease."
Which is an amazing thing for a so-called guru to say. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it explains why this concept is so difficult for humans to grasp. What happens to an individual or a whole society when they refuse to follow external authorities?
It forces radical self-responsibility.
Exactly. The text asserts that making Osho or anyone into an authority figure simply creates a new psychological prison.
You're just changing the wallpaper in your cell?
You are. You might trade the stress of the corporate world for the rigid rules of an ashram, but you are still in a cage. You are still relying on an external source to validate your existence.
It's just outsourcing our existential heavy lifting. I mean, we are deeply conditioned from childhood to want the expert to tell us we are healthy.
We want the scripture to tell us we are moral.
And we want the teacher to give us the A grade so we know we have actually succeeded.
We crave that outsourcing because sitting in the raw, unmediated silence of our own presence, without a guide telling us we are doing it right, is excruciating.
The ego demands a map.
It needs a map. If there is no map and no authority, the ego has nothing to grasp. Truth, as the text insists, cannot be handed from one person to another like a physical object. It can only be pointed to.
The finger pointing at the moon again.
Exactly. A guru can only ever be a finger. If you worship the finger, you miss the sky entirely.
And the danger of the spiritual seeking trap is that it feels so incredibly productive.
It feels like work.
Yeah, reading another self-improvement book feels like progress. Listening to deep dives like this one feels like you are getting closer to the answer.
But the aggressive truth of this philosophy is that the very act of trying to improve yourself is what maintains the illusion that you are currently broken.
Wow.
You cannot progress towards something you already are. You can only awaken to the fact that the journey was an illusion.
Which brings us right back to the most dangerous thing in the world, the sleeping human who believes they are awake.
That sleep state is characterized by this constant forward motion, this endless striving to become something else.
Well, awakening is just stopping.
Yes, awakening, in the context of this material, is the abrupt, complete cessation of that seeking. It is the terrifying, beautiful realization that there is nowhere left to go.
To really let that land, I want to just drop the energy down for a second. Let's step out of the intellectual analysis and speak directly and intimately to you listening right now.
Bring it to the present.
Exactly. Draw your attention to the immediate physical reality you're experiencing in this exact second. Notice the automatic function of your body.
The breath entering your lungs.
And the breath leaving. There is a heart drumming rhythmically in your chest right now, and it requires zero conscious effort or management from you.
Just functioning perfectly on its own.
There is the physical vibration of my voice reaching your ears. And beneath all of that, holding all of it, there's a profound silence between these words.
The ultimate synthesis of these teachings is that the awareness, the thing observing the breath, hearing the voice, and noticing the silence, is the only real thing about you.
You don't need a new practice.
You do not need a new morning routine to become worthy. You don't need a new philosophical framework to be complete. The radical, unyielding claim of the text is that you are entirely unbroken.
Just as you are.
Exactly as you are. Beneath the battered, exhausted avatars you wear every day, you are completely undamaged. This exact moment, with all of its chaotic imperfections and unresolved problems, is fundamentally enough. You are already home.
That reframing changes the texture of everything we experience. It removes the desperation from our daily lives. So, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to really ponder long after this deep dive ends today.
Something to chew on.
Yeah. If you genuinely internalize the mechanics of this text, if you truly accept that you are the vast, untouchable sky, and that all your intense ambitions, your heavy regrets, and your carefully curated identities are merely passing weather, how does that change the way you react when the very next storm rolls into your life today?